Hello again, everybody, and welcome to You Bet CaneSport with Lee Sterling, our weekly look at the Miami Hurricanes from the betting perspective. I'm Gary Furman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined by Lee Sterling himself from Paramount Sports. And Lee, we didn't have a show last week, which is probably a good thing because, my goodness, man, the Miami Hurricanes.
It was bad.
Against Middle Tennessee State, man, that was not a good day for Canes fans. It was not a good day for bettors, I'm sure. I can't imagine too many people were taking Middle Tennessee State. Before we get into this week's game, which is obviously massive, and what I think is a pretty interesting betting game, what were your initial thoughts coming out of Middle Tennessee?
When you turn the ball over 3 times, your first 3 possessions, just shows you the kids weren't ready to play. Coaches, I like the fact that Mario stood up and said, "Hey, we didn't do a good job either," and that was evident. We just don't have the players right now to play at a real high level. So now it looks like even the loss to Texas A&M has been downgraded. I mean, they get blown out at Mississippi State. For Miami's sake, Miami needs Texas A&M to play well at Alabama. We all knew deep down, I think, that this was a 2-year process.
At least, yeah. We
were hopeful because the ACC is still not great, that they could get it done. No one in their right mind. I mean, I chose Middle Tennessee State, but did I think they were going to win the game? No. But that's why they play the games. That's why it makes it so interesting. And just remember this. Alabama lost to Louisiana Monroe in Nick Saban's first year. Look it up. I think it was like 21-14. So when you feel terrible, when you want to be comforted, when your wife or your girlfriend or if you're a woman watching this, your husband won't cuddle up to you or whisper sweet nothings in your ear, just remember that Nick Saban lost in his first year to Louisiana Monroe.
How do handicappers, how do line makers deal with something like that? I mean, you're going into the week, you're not thinking that Middle Tennessee is going to beat Miami. You're trying to figure out where the line should be. I think it ended up being like 26 or something, if I remember correctly, in that game. But I mean, I got to think that most of the money in Vegas and stuff had to go on Miami. I mean, they probably made a lot of money on that game, actually. Am I right?
Not all for me. They didn't. But, the line started at like 25 and closed at like 26.5. Yeah. So, I don't – to be honest with you, I don't think a whole lot of people were betting the game. So,
it's a pass.
Whatever actually they did. In fact, I actually checked when the game started. 83% of the money was bet on Miami.
Right.
But they don't tell you the handle. I don't think the handle was very high. And, it shows you. I mean, it's a good lesson for these kids. They're going to be here for a while. I think we knew. Just look at the draft. We had, one kid drafted forward from last year? Yep. He barely made the squad as a third-string defensive tackle. I don't even know if he's seen any action. And some of these other kids that, they were touting were going to be 4th, 5th rounders, like Harley and Rambo, didn't even make a roster. They weren't even close. No. So we've got to upgrade the talent. So I think it's going to get done. I think Mario's still the guy. Let's not panic. Baby steps.
All right, so those baby steps take us to a home game this week against a North Carolina team that can score in bunches, Lee. And I mean, you look at their scores. I mean, 56 against FAMU, not a surprise. That's a lopsided game. But then they put 63 on Appalachian State, which went into College Station and only allowed Texas A&M to score 13. That's an interesting thing to look at. They only scored 32 against Notre Dame. They scored 41 against Virginia Tech, playing a Miami team that is having trouble scoring, has been struggling on offense. So here's my question for you, Lee. Miami, 3-point favorite in this game. Okay. Yeah. You get to explain that one to us.
Okay. So 3 points is usually assigned to the home team. The odds makers feel, or at least they feel they'll get half the action on one side and half on the other. So it started at 3.5, 4, and the action has come in like we thought on North Carolina. So this is what I did. I've seen every North Carolina game. I went back and watched the North Carolina Notre Dame game twice today.
Did you?
Because I felt that if you're going to beat North Carolina, what is the team that most resembles Miami? Miami wants to be a power spread, and that's Notre Dame. They don't have a mobile quarterback. He can run if he has to, and I think that would, kind of tell you what Miami's whole offense, their quarterback the situation is about. They throw to their tight end a lot, which Miami is probably going to have to do the rest of the year. And they had the most success against North Carolina, stopping that offense and also eating the clock. North Carolina did not have the ball a whole lot in that game. So this is what I found. If you want to have a chance to slow down Drake May, and he is better than I thought. I thought he was really good the first time I saw him. His problem is in a couple of these games, especially the Notre Dame game, he had a couple drops. They're down like 21-14. He throws a bomb on a dime to his best receiver, number 3. And what happens? Drops the ball. And then they didn't really have the ball back for a while. So it really wasn't his fault. The weight, now he is really mobile. You just cannot power rush him and take a chance. We've had a problem with our defensive linemen over the last couple of years. When they know it's a pass, they don't stay in their lanes. They think, here, what's the best way I can get to the quarterback? And probably more than anything, you obviously want to get sacks. That's great. But you want to stay in your lanes. He will come to you if he doesn't see his first 2 guys open. Mm-hmm. So I felt the most effective rush against him was when you have the defensive ends crash and the tackles come around. So if you see Miami run that kind of pass rush, they got it from watching Notre Dame and have some success against him. So he is very mobile, and as good of a passer he is, it's underrated, his escapability. Mm-hmm. But like I said, he will make a decision, and he doesn't usually run sideways. He runs usually where the off tackles are, wherever he can get a shot there. So they're really good on offense. Number 3 and also Downs, number 11, are their best receivers. The Downs run more of the crosses across the middle, the slants, the flanker screens. Number 3 runs more their straight line passes down the field. Their defense is horrendous. Horrendous. I'm looking for guys that are good. The only guy I found that was decent was probably number 9, Cameron Kelly. Played last year for him, but he's a transfer 2 years ago from Auburn. He's the only guy that makes plays. Their biggest problem, and if you don't have good defensive linemen, you better have some real good linebackers. Their linebackers take chances because they're only like 215, 220 pounds. And we have linebackers that small. They got to take shots. They got to – and Miami's had that problem. Yeah, we've had that same problem. Our linebackers were undersized, so they would take a shot and go one way. They thought the running back was going instead of sticking and holding the guard or the pulling tackle. These don't have playmakers. You can do whatever you want on them, but I will say this: the most success teams have is with their tight end. So we've got to use our tight end and multiple tight end sets on them, and take our time and run the football. I don't think our line is as good as Notre Dame's is, but I think we can have a lot of success. The key is, we want to score, but we want to take 4, 5, 6 minutes and keep their offense off the field. So I'm going to say this. I'm going to pick Miami, believe it or not. Because we have 8, maybe 9 or 10 guys that can rush the passer. And I think playing at 4 o'clock still going to be really hot. I think having the bye week to study, we're going to see how good. I think it's going to fall in the defensive line here. If they can stay in their lanes and put enough pressure on him and not tire out, I think we win the game here. So I'm going to pick Miami to win this game 35-31. They cover by a point.
I'm with you 100% on that. I think the line's a little bit of a tricky line because North Carolina's played better football so far this year than Miami, but with 2 weeks to prepare, a circle the wagons mindset within the program. I'm expecting Miami to show up big this weekend. I really am. I think they're going to be very highly motivated, and I'm expecting the offense with 2 weeks to game plan and prepare to be able to exploit that defense.
And then on top of that, North Carolina, one of the worst covering road teams since Mac Brown has come here.
Wow,
in
really?
His 3.5 years. So they're not a good road team, much better home. And I've been to a game like 3 or 4 years ago at North Carolina. Makes no sense. Their home field advantage. It's not a loud crowd there, even when it's full. But for some reason, they play much worse on the road. So if May's hot, we're in trouble. I mean, he is really good.
Well, they got to pressure him. This is why they brought the transfers in. Messidor, Agude. They have got to pressure him, and I think they'll be able to. I really do.
But stay in their lanes, and we're going to see if their coaches coach them up that way. If they just tell them, I'm sure they do coach them up that way. They see the same film, but some of these guys, they get in games and they just forget about it.
Yeah.
You got to play. It's a team game, and all 4 guys got to play together and be working in harmony, just like an offensive line. When plays break down, it's usually not 2 or 3 guys. It's one guy that doesn't do his job. So this is an important test here, and we're going to find out. I think we're going to have a real good idea where we are. We could still lose this game and be on the right track if May is just, like I said, in a zone. Great quarterbacks can mask a lot of weaknesses, but I think North Carolina's defense is so bad. We should be able to run and throw intermediate passes. The middle of the field is wide open. Also, you can run. Notre Dame ran a couple wheel routes on them with their backs, and also if you get in the red zone, if you can run a receiver and have him inside the 5, take a path like he's running like a 5 and in, and then he zigs out afterwards. Plays like that are wide open. They're not coached well. Let's get a win, 35-31.
All right, the over-under, 66.5 in this game. I think a lot of people are going to be taking. I think a lot of people are taking the over on this one, Lee. What are your thoughts?
Well, I predicted 66 points there.
35. So you're right on the number.
Isn't that funny that the way it works out that way? Okay. A lot of times, so I don't look at the totals when I predict a score. Then I go after I do the games. I go back and do every game with a total, and it's amazing how uncanny sometimes I'm within 2-3 points. Yeah. I mean, if it's a nice day and you like May and you think that we're going to have a comeback by our quarterbacks are going to play much better, which they should, Van Dyke, then you go with the over. If it's raining, then you maybe look to the under.
All right. There are a couple other games this weekend I wanted to ask you about. Florida State, after taking their first loss at home last weekend against Wake Forest, is a 3-point underdog at NC State. Lee, my brain is screaming NC State in this game. Home. They just lost to Clemson. I think they're a better team than Florida State. Florida State's had some good fortune earlier in the year. NC State -3. Your thoughts?
Tough game. Another tough game. I'm going to like the last game we talk about more, but I actually like Florida State here. Devin Leary, it just he has no mobility at all, or at least very little. And what's interesting was they were right in the game with Clemson. Watched that game twice, and then they just stopped. I mean, they were pushing the ball down the field at first. And what happens sometimes also is you get a team like NC State, Clemson, their defensive line, they are just so talented. The 2 tackles for NC State are really weak. And I think Florida State's going to get a couple sacks there also. So North Carolina State might have more talent as far as players, but they have some weaknesses. Like I said, those two tackles, and I don't think their coaching is great. And I think it's important to have a quarterback who can move some. And Leary just can't move much, and crunch time, he couldn't get it done, and their play calling wasn't good. I'm going to go with Florida State. I think they win that game 31-24.
Wow. So Florida State, 3-point underdog, wins the game in your mind by 7. That's a 10-point swing. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. I'm still taking NC State. Next one I want to ask you about is Texas A&M at Bama. Okay, what a difference a year makes, Lee. Everyone I'm sure remembers that Texas A&M at home last year upset Bama. Now Jimbo, who ran his mouth a little bit too much in the offseason, is getting ready to take the poison a little bit here, going into Tuscaloosa. Lee, the line makers are saying 24 points, Alabama favored. I don't think that's enough. I'm taking Bama. What do you think?
Okay, so here's what's interesting. So I power rate every single team, and I can tell you what the line should be and what it actually is, usually, within a point. I do this on Sunday night. You should come over my house one time, and after you've done this for so many years, you know how lines makers think, and they're thinking, what is the bettor going to bet? The line should be 17 points in this game, Gary. But I put down 23.5. And what do they come out at? 23.5 and 24, and it's sitting at 24.
Because everyone knows that Saban is going to want to crush them.
Right. But I will say this. If people remember last year when they played Texas A&M had come off playing the same two teams, Arkansas, Mississippi State, and scored 10 and 22 points. Everyone thought they had no chance. Zach Calzada, who right now is injured, but he was the third-string quarterback at Auburn, had no chance of even playing this year. He led them to that win. Obviously, the game's at Alabama. But Alabama, Bryce Young, even if he plays about 75, 80%, they were, hanging on for dear life last week. And then they ran 3 straight plays, 3 straight possessions for 70, 80 yards. Arkansas's run defense is terrible. Texas A&M has much better athletes than Arkansas. It's not even close. So as bad as Texas A&M has looked, they're a better team than Arkansas, in my opinion. I think they're going to come to play. I think Jimbo is going to game plan like crazy here.
Oh, no doubt.
And I don't think this Alabama defense is great. I don't think their receivers are anything special. They got a couple of really good running backs. Their offensive line is nothing special. I think they're going to win the game 34-20. I'm going to take the 24 points here.
So the lesson you're teaching me is don't get emotional about this stuff.
Right.
Don't overthink it, because I'm sitting there thinking Saban's going to boom, crush those guys.
It's like a stock. It's like a stock, Gary. All right, we buy stocks. Is the idea to buy high or to buy low?
Yeah.
Buy low, sell high. You're never going to get Texas unless Texas A&M loses by 30 or 40 points. They are almost at a low right now, and I think 24 points is a lot with two teams with talent.
The little gimmick line there is interesting. No doubt about it. All right, Lee. Well, we're going to see what happens this weekend. This is a big weekend, not just for Alabama, Texas A&M, and Florida State. It's a huge weekend for Miami. They got to find a way to win this game, get their season back on track. That is the only way to wash away the stench of what happened against Middle Tennessee State. So we'll see what happens. We'll check back in with you next week. Anything you want to tell us about Paramount Sports this week?
That's it. It's been a great year. So Miami's had a rough year. We've actually had a great year. So it's helped a little bit. We went 9-3 last week for our clients, 9-2 the week before, 8-3 and 6-3, a 32-12 run against the spread. So one of the best months we've ever had. We don't call it October here. We call it Locktober. You get 4 weeks for $297. Let's go to ParamountSports.com. You want to give us a shot.
So 32-12, that's 44 games. So if you bet $100 on every game, that's you're up like 2,400. I believe.
No, you're up. So 2012, you're up.
$2,000.
That's 20. But it's about $1,800.
All right, cool. And you're selling those picks for what'd you say?
$297.
$297
per month.
All right, that's a pretty good deal, guys. And Lee's calling it Locktober, which means he's going to match that pace here in the month of October. All right, Lee, we'll check in with you next week, man. Thank you for your input.
Okay, thanks, Gary.
We'll see you next week, everybody.